Coming up is a conversation with a wonderful human being. Her name is Fernando. She wrote a book called Unapologetically Human. And just think about that for a second. No apologies for being human. She's going to talk a lot about the heart, but mainly the brain and how it helps us not only stay centered, but stay grounded and more focused on what it is we say is important. And you've heard those words here before. So give it a listen, like it, love it. And again, I want to say thank you to EnteraWorks, my sponsor. Thank you for being here. They are, if not the best productivity company in the world. In addition to productivity, they help leaders become better leaders. Yes, we're all on the same team in that one. You can find them at enteraworks.com. Welcome, everyone. This is Greg Aden from Denver, Colorado. And as my guest just asked me, no, it's not freezing outside, but it is cold. And I'm sure it's cold around the world. But today I'm going to warm you up. I'm going to warm you up with a human being that has not only written a book into how a lot of us could and should lead, how we could and should communicate, and how we can learn differently going forward. Our paths crossed probably over about 9 years of our time together at IHG. We didn't really know one another. She was becoming important and creative and involved, and I was trying to stay relevant as a franchise salesperson. And we connected, and I said, "Hey, would you like to be on my podcast?" And she said, "Sure." And oh, by the way, I've written a book. So I give you Fernando, and she has written a book, Unapologetically Human, and we'll get into that. But before we do, Crystal, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your why? And if a little 12-year-old asked you, what do you stand for? How would you answer that?
That's such a good question. Thank you. First, thanks for having me, Greg. It's
good. My pleasure.
Good that our paths are crossing again. I think that's meaningful, and I appreciate being here. Gosh, what is my why? A lot of what I do is in service of the future generation. And while I work with leadership, I also work with kiddos. And I've been grappling with that. If there's one word I would use, and it would probably be conscious leadership or agency. And I know those are two different things, but I feel like when we have an understanding of ourselves and how we function, and as we explore the book, you'll see I have a passion for science and neuroscience and kind of understanding the mechanics of this thing called the brain we carry around everywhere, and it influences everything we do, from what we feel and how we behave. And in a world that's moving really fast, I think conscious leadership and just absolute grounded intention is becoming a thing that's far too sparse. So I consider it my mission to help people understand themselves so that they can be better versions of themselves and they can uncover purpose, passion, and possibility.
Thank you. So about 9 years ago, you started Whatbox. Tell us, how did you get the name? Obviously, you were the founder and CEO about 9 years ago. What were you thinking, and where did Whatbox come from?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm not sure anyone has actually ever asked me that question, but there's a story there. I left, as you know, I spent a long time first in the world of startup and then in the world of consulting. And then you and I crossed paths as Intercontinental Hotels Group, and I was there for 15 years. And dialed back a few years before I left IHG, I was living in Asia, and there was this moment in time where I was trying to figure out where I was going to go. And someone asked me, and the story's in the book, actually, he asked me, what was I? And it just sort of struck me like they were reorging. It's like, I don't understand. Are you in sales? Are you in? And if you looked at the background of kind of where I came from, I was in startup, I was in consulting. I didn't have a linear path. And before I knew it, I blurted out, well, I'm a change maker. I'm a leader. Like, it just kind of came right out. And I remember thinking I don't fit in a box. And I was almost offended, but not really, just kind of struck by this fact that a confused consumer buys nothing. And here I was on the edge because I had not branded myself in a vertical. And I think if you look back across my career, I've never fit into neat boxes. And so, but it wasn't
Ah,
outside the box. So at some point I was like, is it outside the box? Is it inside the something? And then one day I'm like, I don't think it's a box at all. And so if you look at our logo, it's an origami bird, and it's in
yeah.
our video animations that this box opens up, and not only is it not a box, but it turns into a bird and it flies away. And some of that was the defiant nature of kind of who I am, but also this idea that why does there need to be a box at all? And what if we just drew outside the lines and then the logo's multiple colors, because it's really the power of diversity. So there's actually quite a bit of depth in there. But what box came from this idea of I don't need a box. And not only do I need a box, but if you give me a box, I'm going to turn it into something. And I've always been innovative and creative and maybe a little bit defiant. And it was embodying all of that. So that's where it came from. Yeah.
Defiant twice in 1 minute. Tell us more about
Did I
that.
say that? Yeah. Wow. You're a great listener. Defiant, not in a way that is reckless. I think what I have always noticed is that I live between the lines and the nuance, and I feel like performance is in the nuance.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, a lot of the traditional skills that we celebrate are very concrete. So when I felt defiant, maybe I was just being myself, but I mean, I was just saying I don't fit into that normal mold, and to be able to live in the nuance and to see and hold multiple truths, perhaps that's seen as defiance. I also feel like I've spent an entire career pushing the limits of what's possible, and I love it. And so I've asked myself multiple times, why do I keep running at the edge? Because leadership at the edge is hard.
Well,
It's messy, it's hard, it isn't clear, and yet I've spent an entire career chasing kind of what's next. And so when I was reading the book, I did stop, and I'm like, is that because it's familiar? Am I addicted to chaos? Like, what is this? And I kept pulling it back. And after pulling off all those layers and going through the work, it was, you know what, hope lives on the edge. And I feel like you have to be a little bit defiant to get there and to help people stretch what's comfortable into what's possible.
hmm.
And I love doing that work. I love doing it on individual level, team level, organizational level. I love helping people realize a tiny bit of defiance with some clarity and rigor actually makes really great things happen. So,
Well, thank you for being defiant. Thank you for taking things to the edge, because that's where the fun is. That's where the juice is. That's where the results are. And I mean, to the listeners that have children, I want you to listen to the following words from Crystal and ask yourselves, are we allowing our kids to learn so they can be successful? And again, that may not match with you, Crystal, but share quickly that version of your experience.
the story recounts, I don't remember how old I was, but pretty young. And I remember a teacher had identified that I should be in a gifted program.
Yep.
And they gave me a test, and I failed that test. And I remember my mom knew that I had kind of test anxiety and I would always overthink the questions. And she said, no, really. She called the school and said, I think you should give it to her. Just try it. Just do it verbally and see what happens. I really think it was test anxiety. And what was interesting for me, I don't know if I'll ever know if I passed or failed that test, but the second time around, I not only felt more comfortable, but I was also in a room with another human. And
Mm.
so instead of the binary yes or no, I was also looking at her expressions. And I remember thinking to myself, this is so much easier because I can read, I can almost foreshadow what she needed from me, and I gave it to her, and I aced the test, and I spent the rest of my educational career in the gifted track. But I've often asked myself whether that was, and I had some things going on at home which I also explore in the book, which was, having to be attuned to emotions and to nuance because it was a survival technique. But I remember
Yeah.
leaving that room thinking, this is a skill I didn't know I had. And it became a large part of my leadership, if I'm honest, around
Yeah.
being able to pick up on people and humanity and nuance and feelings. And the hard part of leadership is exactly that. So yeah,
Imagine
I guess from my kids' point of view, not everyone learns the same. So I'm curious when we went through that and you read that story, what came up for you, Greg?
being present and
Mhm.
exactly what you said, reading the other person's expressions. What are they really asking me? I can hear the question, I can make sense of it, but what do they really want me to say, and what's really true for me? And think about how we communicate today. the millions and millions of texts that are going on as we speak because someone or both of them either fear the voice of another human being or don't have the courage or doesn't really want to spend the time meeting them in person and saying, hey, Chuck, let's get through this. What is really keeping us from having a great relationship? Not selling or buying anything. It's just all about another human wanting to be with another human. And that's why I love the part of the book that I read so far is unapologetically human. What do we need to apologize when we're just trying to be good human beings, kind human beings, curious human beings, empathetic human beings, all the things that I know you stand for and all the things that you're recommending people do differently after they read your book. So let's jump into it. To be human is to be beautifully flawed and endlessly unfinished, dedicated to a shared future, to those brave enough to build it, curious enough to question it, and wise enough to honor its humanity. If we covered nothing else but those two, wow. And again, I just love how you slow down, and I love your intentionality. And before I read a couple points from Dr. Is it Evian?
Ian, that's right.
Okay, Dr. Evian Gordon. Clearly, you've worked together before. Clearly, you know each other really well. But give us a backdrop on the person you asked to write the foreword.
Sure. Evian started out being a colleague. Well, actually, he was my professor. So let me backtrack for a moment. When I was always doing a little bit of coaching, I had been a leader for many years. Towards the end of my career, I started getting into coaching a little bit more from a internal corporate perspective. And when I realized that I wanted to go in this direction, at the same time, ironically, I was invited into a diploma program at Emory University. Mm-hmm. Because it was a pilot. Actually, a former colleague of both of ours from IT was running it, had invited me into it to say, well, come, we want some seasoned leaders to come into this. And one of the modules was neuroscience. It was brain-informed coaching. And I was fascinated by it to begin with, but then Evian Gordon was one of the professors on that module. And he just mentioned in passing that he was also an artist. So he was a 40-year integrated neuroscientist and artist. And I also was in art school initially, turned business. And it's just this thing that doesn't happen very often. So it caught my attention. And I struck up a conversation with him around art meets science and what is that about? And then I said to him, I'm fascinated about the brain science of creativity. And so he and I started one conversation, which became a weekly every Friday. So I've been having Friday sessions and more, but we've done programs and different things. But we started with just curiosity. And I think you mentioned that at the beginning of the podcast. We started with, this is curious. Can we lean in? Yeah. And then we started saying, wow, there really is a lot. And he wanted to know more about business and leadership. And I wanted to know so much more about the brain. And he entertained my wild, curious questions. And what ended up happening was we designed a program for executives for the neuroscience of innovation. And it used to be leaders of innovation were leading on the edge. And I feel like everybody's leading on the edge now, especially now this all started before AI hit the scene as strongly as it did. But now I feel like it couldn't be any more true. It's really just exponentially highlighted that these are core human mechanics, and it doesn't matter how you're applying them. They are the same. And so we began to shift focus. And then that led me to much more work on the brain. And then I've since taken over for Evian. So I teach at Emory University. I teach brain-based strategies. And so our relationship has taken many turns and twists, but he's been a big mentor of mine. And I asked him if he would entertain writing the forward. And of course he did. So
yeah, just beautiful. I'm just going to hit some highlights from the forward. Unapologetically human. It's more than a title. It's a timely reorientation. The real question is, are you in the driver's seat? I want you to cover that in a second. But what he says here, what consistently stands out is her rare ability to translate complexity into clear, practical insights and strategies that drive lasting impact at scale for organizations and the individuals and the communities they serve. So when he says the real question is, are you in the driver's seat? Tell us what that means, and share with us why we should get back into the driver's seat.
Yeah, gosh. So I can imagine, and Greg, not to answer a question with a question, but I wonder if in your lifetime you felt the shift in the world and leadership. And it used to be, I'm curious, when I was in my leadership position early in my career, I felt like most of my problems were in hand, meaning like I could understand them, I could solve them, I could tell someone else how to solve them. And then as time went on, things have gotten more complex. Change has gotten more, dynamic, and it's a lot more layered and complex and interconnected than ever before. And we are, as wired beings, always adapting. So, part of what I think is fascinating and also empowering, super empowering about the brain, is that it can change. And
Yeah.
it is always changing. In fact, you go to bed tonight, you're going to wake up tomorrow, and your brain is different than it was today. And it's consumed all the information that you've allowed it to in this day and age. And most of us spend a very large amount of that time being fed information and fed algorithms. And once we agree on something, we see five more things we agree on. Unless you're conscious about the information that you're consuming, it's happening really without our awareness. And 90%, I think he also says this in the forward, over 90% of our decisions are on our non-conscious. And so a lot of that's happening without our awareness. And as we live and lead in a world that is constantly giving us information and we are reacting to it, we are adapting, but we're certainly not in the driver's seat of that adaptation. So it's not a question of whether humanity is adapting. And now you add AI to that, right? In a
Well,
hyper-connected world, it is unquestionable that we are adapting. The question is, are you in control of that? Do you choose to have different information? So yeah.
yeah,
Hopefully.
let me answer your question.
Absolutely.
I believe when I was in the driver's seat is when I absolutely controlled what I could control.
Mm-hmm.
But no, you cannot be in the driver's seat when you're always wondering when these battling agendas are gonna smooth out. But I've always believed, at least the last 14 years, then you can actually rewire how you think and what do you want and how you look at things. You can actually shift that. But anyway, back to this. And I love what he says about you. Her simple, which is an acronym, we'll get into that in a second, framework, safety, intention, mindset, powerful questions, leveraging systems and empathy. Thank you for including empathy in your model. So the framework, how did you come up with these words?
Yeah, thanks. Simple came later. Ironically, truthfully, the process that I went through was to really gather human truths for a while. Like, what are the things that are always constant and remain true no matter how much change you're enduring? And I think a little bit about our work, but I work a lot as a strategist of transformation and change at a very large scale at times. And so sometimes I'm working with senior executives as a coach, and other times I'm a strategic advisor. And I always ask the question, what will not change? What will remain true? What will remain grounded? What do you stand for? What do you believe in? Even if it's a culture, right? It could be a person or a leader, but it could also be as a company. What's in your heritage that you're proud of that you do not want to see changed? And what are people afraid of? And so it started from there, just gathering what are the things that will always remain true as we begin to see the world move faster and faster, frankly. And so that was the initial piece, but it had to not just be that. It had to be brain-based. We had to dive deep into the science of it, and it had to be valid and scientifically vetted. So I wasn't
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist, so I wasn't looking to unearth or do a bunch of new research. So we went through, I say we, but me, myself, my team, Evian, kind of really poured through the science to make sure it was valid and that we weren't really putting anything that hadn't been absolutely proven. And it had to scale. It had to
Yeah.
scale it had to work for me, work for we, how we work together, and then also all the way out to systems because of the work that I do with large organizations and societies and school systems. And if it didn't hold true to all of those, it didn't stay in the framework. And then one day I was just looking at the framework and trying, like, what do they have in common? And there are these 6 or 7 or 8 things. And I would combine them and synthesize them and go, well, actually, the ones that seem to really work were interconnected. So when you work on one thing, it kind of works on another thing and it provides the whole system. And then we also split it into 2 pieces. And as you'll see in the book, the first piece is stability and the second piece is agility.
Right.
And
Love
it,
that.
it just simple came right out of that one day. I think I had to change one word. The leveraging systems was one that we were like, well, how could we do that to make that work? But it wasn't like we did the framework and then crammed it in. And
Sure.
so the beginning part of it is, how do you get footing in a world that can feel like chaos and can feel
Mm.
unmooring sometimes? And that's the SIM, stability. It's safety, intention, and mindset. And then the last three are new skills for leaders to navigate with power and grace and agility. And I think I hear a lot of leaders who say, I need my team to be more agile, more adaptive, more creative. And you're like, that's awesome, but you're totally unhinged. So can we work on that first piece first? And I think we skip past that too soon. So a little bit of the intention there to make sure that we're balancing. And I think that's going to be, in my humble opinion, the future of leadership will have to balance stability and agility at all times. That's just really going to be the name of the game, while keeping it human and technologically enabled, if that makes sense. There's no question technology is a part of our future. The question is, where is the human? Where are we putting humans in the middle? I guess is what we're saying. So, Greg, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of things that you said is we lead with power and grace. And
Mm-hmm.
if we don't have both of those, then you're not a leader. You can't lead with power. Also, asking what the organization's values are, the ones that will not be negotiated. Does values come up in that conversation?
Yes, you're going to hear my cynicism. Yes, though I find too often you get a pile of words and
Yeah.
then I dig into that. I'm like, are you living those words? What does that look like? What does that value look like today? And what does that value look like in this future state? And I'm looking for the shift. Is there a shift
Yep.
that, what remains true? And then what changes to still embody that truth in this new world, in this new form? And part of what I believe and what I see is that the new era of leadership is about holding multiple truths, and it's
Mm-hmm.
about holding tension. And that is one of those tensions: what will change, what will not, what is stable, but we can't just be stable, because then there's no change and innovation, and we can't change so fast and agile that we've forgotten the plot, and now we're unhinged, and now people are stressed and quitting. Like, there's just too much. So holding that line. And yes, I absolutely 100% talk about values both with organizations and people. So the
Yeah.
people leading those changes, I would ask you, Greg, you're leading a big change, what are you going to double down on in your value set? Are you clear on that? Because things get tough, and when things get tough, do we lean towards performance or do we lean towards presence, for example, when both are
Oh,
needed?
yeah.
Both are true, both are
Well,
needed, both are great
you,
qualities.
and you
How are you going to use your values to navigate?
Well, yeah, the values are words, and I ask my clients all the time, which of these really matter,
Mm-hmm.
and what are you going to stand for if someone isn't valuing or isn't behaving your values? But you had me earlier about a minute ago when you said when we can just hold the tension, we can stand in tension, not in tension, but in tension when things aren't going well, right? So tell me more about that, because in my opinion, there's a really cool lesson here. Things aren't going perfect. They're not broken. The roof's not caving in, but we're not just sitting back enjoying every day like it's easy. There's some tension out there. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you address that in your book? How do you address it now as you coach and lead others?
Yeah, that's a really great question. There's a conversation I like to have, and I do think we have, when we were saying earlier, yeah, earlier in my career, I had problems, I squashed them, I solved them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is a difference between a problem and a paradox. And so sometimes I'm like, I don't think we have a whole lot of problems that can just be squashed anymore. I think we have a whole lot of complex things that we navigate on a daily basis. And with that,
Amen.
there is no problem. There's no single solution, and there are only tensions to manage. And so for me, identifying the tensions to manage, what is the tension that's present? And so one thing to notice as a leader is, what are the tensions? Have you named them? Do you understand the pros and cons of either, each pole, if you will? And I
Mm-hmm.
think back to, like, we're being wired to just really, and when we're in tension and we're feeling stressed, we only have access to binary thinking. So we usually pick a side. Does that make sense? You're like, well,
Yeah.
I'm on the rigor side or I'm on the no. And you're like, I don't know that we need to pick a side if we slow down and first calm down and find a place where we can hold multiple truths. And that is a brain function. And that's part of chapter 1 when we talk about safety. And you can't hold
Mm-hmm.
multiple truths if you're in protection mode. And
Right.
so understanding those dynamics is interesting, and we don't always connect those dots, right? We just launch right into the conversation and why I'm right and you're wrong, and here's all my reasonings. And
Anything you would want to say that really stands out, let's just say in the first part of the book, if someone is reading it, what do you believe most of your readers are going to pull out of that first chapter, the opening, and say, holy smokes, I'm loving it. I'm loving
gosh.
it.
Yeah, this was a tough, for me, was a tough book to write because each one of these topics could have a book about it. Each chapter has books and
I
books.
read that. I read
Um,
that about yeah.
Yeah, it's just there's so much, and it was how, what's the right altitude. But what I did not want to do is to go so deep into one thing that we lost the connection between them. And so, what I
Mm,
would love to help people understand with this first part, which is stability, is number one, it's base camp of any journey. You can't go anywhere without it. And so, this notion or inclination we have to skip past and chase performance, I believe performance emerges when you get the right conditions, and too often we seek it, right? We are pursuing it instead of letting it ensue.
mm,
And that leadership is an inside out job, so really understanding the science behind what unlocks the right kind of thinking is really important, because we tend to be more transactional, and
yeah.
pressure and performance and all the things. And me, I'm performance driven. So I'm not saying that this is in lieu of performance. I'm saying stability in the inside work is performance. And it is a strategic advantage, and it is not soft. So I hope people take from this that it's okay to slow down. It's okay to, I always say, slow down to show up strong. That's one of my own mottos. And I kind of assumed that over the years, like, you've got to slow down really to get clear on what matters, or the world's driving you. And so, back to you saying, I feel like I can focus only on what I have control over. I hope people take agency, and that we have a lot more control than we think we do often, especially when things are moving fast and you feel like you're in control. You can feel like you are at the mercy of many things, but really you're not. And I hope that they take that agency from it.
Yeah, and we'll talk about agency for a second, but and not but
Mhm.
when I hear I'm out of control or it's not in my control. Okay, perhaps what you just said, victim, sorry, is real. Well, let's describe what is in your control, and just write it down. Take as long as you want. And I just watch them thinking, writing, thinking, writing, and they go, "Wow, I'm in control of quite a bit." Yeah,
Mhm.
that's how you got here. In being in control of your life, not controlling everything, but being in control of what you can control. And now, what do you want to focus on? Where do you want to go? When do you want to get there? By the way, if you can see that picture behind me, the mountain, this one,
Oh, right. I can see that one.
that is Mount Aconcagua in Argentina. It's 21,000 plus feet, and base camp was 13,000 plus. And you're right. We had to walk, I don't know, 30 some miles to get to base camp. We stayed there 2 days just to acclimate. But that's where it all started. That's where we went from walking to climbing. And if you can't get to base camp and enjoy it and look up and say, how can I possibly get there? Then you probably aren't trained and ready to go. And I love the hiking and mountain climbing analogy because there's so many false summits.
Mhm.
There's so many times where we get to a top and we, oh shoot, there's a whole another way up there. Even though your mind plays tricks with you. And anyway, just one little antidote.
I love that. I love that you can identify with that literally. That's really neat. The safety chapter, which is about what would I call base, like the base camp, is really
Mm-hmm.
the inside out job. One of the things, and I don't know how far and deep you got into that piece of it, but there's an in the moment and in the long run. So just like athletes, there is a, how do I feel today? Did I get sleep? Have I eaten? It's an in the moment thing. And I'm hoping that leaders and anyone who reads the book will realize there's an in the moment. You can be a rock star athlete and still have a bad moment and a bad day, and know that this is not the time to climb, right? That I have to be in the right mindset, right? So, and then there's fitness over time. So understanding how to we call it master the moment. How do I not get hijacked in these high stake moments? And how do I access clarity? You have a heck of a lot more power there, empowerment, than you think you do. And when you have this way or that way, right or left, I can't do this, I have to quit my job. Sometimes all it takes is walk away, take a break, go outside. You're like, I'm not in the frame of mind right now to make this decision. And in the long run, the more you access that and the least often you become victim to that mind state, and you begin to question your mindsets. And I do distinguish between the two. It's a state of mind right here and now, and mindset is stories you tell yourself. I can't do this. I don't have power. It's not my choice. Those are things that will keep you back. So the combination of knowing where you are and also building fitness in the long run, the intention of knowing what really matters and what hill are you going to take, because you can't take them all, and what really matters to you. And then the third one is, what stories are you telling yourself that are holding you back? And those three are stability.
Absolutely. Beautiful. And I come from a model of victim owner, and it's when something happens to you.
That's right.
And you need to make a decision. You can go into victimhood down here, and it's all the words you can imagine how you show up. Or when you enter this opportunity, do you go into owner mode and realize that I can do this, I own this, these are my responsibilities, etc. Back to mountain climbing for a second, we'd always remind ourselves as we would climb in teams and do all sorts of exercises, etc. Your mind gives out long before your body does. And when your mind says you can't do this, your body says, okay,
I can't do this.
And when you say we can, but sometimes you just need to step aside and get your mind right and say, you've trained for this, you're going to be okay, and move forward. And same with the presentation, same with the test, same with leading a boardroom. I mean, at some point, if you get so scared you need to take a break, that's better than making stuff up.
Oh, 100%. You know what that reminds me of, Greg, when we were talking earlier about education? It does bring up for me one thing, and that is, first, we are the authors of our own story. So the stories we tell ourselves become our reality, which has a direct relationship back to your ability to stay calm or not, and believe in yourself or not. But I would say our entire generation, and I'm lumping us together in a big, broad umbrella, very, very big and broad, that we were taught to have the right answer. We were, schools in education systems say, like, your test score and your right answers, those are the things that we were celebrated for. I think we were both promoted because we got the right job done or the right answer. And I feel like a lot of leaders, especially in this, and a lot of senior leaders who have been programmed, wired, rewarded for having the right answer, suddenly have no clue. Right? It's like, It is new territory, new terrain. I don't know this mountain. And so you have to lean back on what you just said, self-talk. I know how to do this. I can learn through anything. But I'm not sure we were taught that. We were taught to go get the answer, tell other people the answer, tell other people. And so it is a new era of leadership. And it means we have to reprogram ourselves as parents, leaders, executives, and also young leaders who are coming into this with growth mindset, with empowered stories, with the ability to learn constantly. Those are all going to make or break our future, but I'm not sure we arrived on the scene ready for the moment that we're in.
No. And I would say to all generations, my experiences after doing this for a while and being a leader for 3+ years of people, then I was just yesterday I was on their team, and now I'm leading. Just because you're a great athlete, a great wide receiver, a great first baseman, or a great salesperson does not automatically translate into being a great leader, because you have to go from I to we. And we is a constant reminder of, we are all on the same team. We're all moving in one direction. I'm just here to help us get there. What do you believe we should do? If you, again, I'm going to highly recommend, and if you are remotely thinking about making your team better, if you're remotely thinking about becoming a better leader, a better spouse, a better parent, a better human being, I can't imagine why someone wouldn't want to read this book. But if there was one person out there, and you don't have to give him a name or her a name, if you could truly wish that person picked up this book and read it, who would that be?
But who I really wrote it for and targeted it for were the leaders I was just describing. You've been a leader, you have a team, perhaps you're over an entire organization, maybe you're over an entire function or region, And what got you here is suddenly not working.
Mm.
And yet you're under pressure, you need to perform, and you want to be human. It's, you really want to lead in a way that matters, but somehow you find yourself in Groundhog Day of like, I don't know why I'm not making traction. I don't know why I can't focus the way I used to. And there are a lot of people in your care. I hope you pick up this book. I hope.
Yeah. There's I think it's, yeah, in the introduction, page 17, at least my page 17, it's, what the report card missed, what we missed in school, what we didn't really test for. And I love this. You said, as a child, I was endlessly curious. And that is a superpower. And I say it all the time on my podcast, because I've learned that two words, being curious, meaning I wonder what the other person's thinking, and I have a question and I want or need them to answer it. And empathy, I wonder where the other person's coming from, and I care enough about them to be curious and find out how I can serve them. And how do we not focus more on curiosity, empathy in school?
It wasn't on the report card, Greg. Just kidding. It still isn't. As you know, my husband and I are founder of a small school in Canada because I feel so incredibly passionate that young people need curiosity and lifelong learning. And they also need groundedness in themselves and their own purpose and passion to be able to navigate with longevity in this world, because the pace is high and it's awfully grueling. And so if you aren't absolutely curious, I don't think it's not going to be an easy journey. It isn't going to
Mm-mm.
be constantly learning. As a parent as well, it takes curiosity. I'm finding myself all the time today, every day, almost every day. I'm looking into something about how to better explain something that I didn't know I was going to be answering, for example. So yeah, I couldn't, if I were to say there's one solid quality, it would be curiosity or agency. And I think they're related, right? If you have curiosity and you believe you can learn through anything, therein lies the agency to do so. So I agree with you,
Mm.
wholeheartedly.
Beautiful. How would you like to wrap this up? What would you like to leave our listeners with, other than buy your book? We'll, do you have a picture of it? Do you have a copy of it? Because
I
all I
do.
have is, yeah, let's take a, can you hold it still? And
Yeah, and I can send you this as well if that's helpful.
yeah,
Crystalfernando.com is where you can purchase the book. We are just moving from pre-sales to sales this week, so this will be very timely. And
terrific.
wetboxpartners.com, but either one, if you go to crystalfernando.com, you will see what you need. And what I would encourage people to do is read it with curiosity and openness.
Yeah.
Start with yourself first. So it's easy to read something and say, I wish this other person would do X, Y, or Z. And I would say start from the inside out. And then the last thing I'll say, Greg, is this was never meant to be. I didn't sit down and say, I'm going to write a book, actually. It was really a mechanism to be a catalyst for real conversations to happen. So I hope people gather people to read the book, and we'll be promoting some support tools around it to enable that, to have simple circles. And so if you have any questions at all, reach out. And I'm very happy. If you're someone who's interested and wants to do this type of work, I'm happy to help.
It'd be a great book for a book club for sure. And just if you heard what I heard, read it as a human. Read it from the inside out. Read it from a place of heart and mind, brain, and figure out, what's true for you. And if it's something's challenging you, you might want to write it down and give it some time, and then go back and ask yourself why. Why is this challenging for you? It's not that you have to believe everything Crystal is saying, but if the things are challenging you, and you know that they might serve you in a way, if they weren't a challenge, if you were to accept them, wrap your head around that one. So thank you very much, Crystal, for being my guest. And I'll say to anyone that's listening, look in the mirror every once in a while and ask yourself, what is it that you really want to accomplish today? And I know it's on your to-do list. It might be on your calendar, but look at yourself and ask that person, what's the most important thing that we can do today together to have a fantastic day? And in my opinion, I hope it includes serving someone else. But I also want you to take care of yourself first, because as we all know, if we're not taking care of ourselves, it's hard to take care of anybody in our house or in our home or on our team. So thank you, Crystal. God bless. I appreciate you being here, and thank you
Pleasure.
very much.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for having me. And thank
Yeah,
you for all the great work that you're doing out there as well. I really appreciate you.
love it. Wow. What a great conversation. Just love the flow of it, how she was unapologetically saying everything that she did, but the book Unapologetically Human is just fantastic. It's a great read. She had me at wildly curious and and empathy. Two of my favorite words, as you know. But I would ask you to dive in and ask yourself, kind of as we talked about there at the end, is it's not about not being a victim and being an owner, but what's holding you back? What up here has got you stunted so you can't lead, or you don't want to lead, you don't want to be kind? And this is really going to give you some antidotes and some mechanisms for you to be a better leader. And you can answer the question that I did on air is, are you in the driver's seat? Well, what does that mean? And if you're not, how can you get back into the driver's seat? Because at the end of the day, you decide who you are, what you want to do, and how you want to go about it. But it's a brilliant read, and I recommend it to you. Again, Unapologetically Human by Crystal Fernando. And thank you, TerraWorks, for being with us. Thank you for being my sponsor. Just a great company relative to productivity, and talk about humans. They're changing mankind every day, and TerraWorks does. So thank you. Enjoy your day. God bless, and go out and serve somebody.